Hi, this is Nico Rosberg, and you're listening to the 233rd edition of Gareth Jones on Speed. Hello, welcome to Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm the Gareth Jones one, he's the Richard one.
Hello.
And he's the Zog one.
Hello.
Guys, I know it's ages since the last Formula E race, but we haven't mentioned it in the last couple of shows. And to be fair, it's still going to be another 12 years before the next race.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
a while,
it's
isn't it?
ages
Yeah.
since and ages until.
So we can still talk about Formula E. I know we all watched that first race in Beijing. I have to say, I was slightly nervous because the last time a new race series, if I recall, went to Beijing, it was the second year of A1GP, where the cars all turned up for this circuit and literally couldn't get round the first corner. They'd drawn a corner so tight. It was an utter disaster. It was awful. And I was worried that Formula E was going to have those sort of teething troubles, but it didn't actually. It went off all right. Did you watch it, Zog?
Yeah, frankly, I was underwhelmed. It was not the most thrilling event. Having been quite worked up about the series, I was really looking forward to seeing a new series and seeing a series that is trying to do something with electric powertrains. As a viewer, there was just no sense of drama. I felt terribly uninvolved. It looked all terribly pokey and tiny, and it was tremendously uneventful up until the point where it got to be massively eventful and exciting for all the wrong reasons for Nick Heidfeld.
What do you mean by pokey and tiny?
I thought the track actually looked small, and it looked like there wasn't anybody there. It looked narrow, and you didn't get much of a sense of speed and drama out of them. And obviously it's always different being trackside at an event and actually seeing the physicality of something whizzing by, and it's very different seeing that on camera. And I know that the cars are not as quick as top Formula cars. They're not super quick, and so they're not going to look as dramatic.
It's 100 mile per hour, really, is about as quick as they go on that circuit.
Is it on that circuit? Because I was told that the cars overall are limited to 150, I think.
In quali, they can get up to that, yeah.
But one of the reasons they're limited to 150 is because the FIA said if they were, then supposedly they'll permit the crowd to be closer to the track.
Okay.
Now, I'm not sure I entirely buy that. What's the difference? 150 mile an hour accident is still going to be quite spectacular and take someone's eye out.
Okay, but
height of the
can I
fencing.
suggest,
Yeah.
because kinetic energy increases with the square of your speed, a small increase in speed gives you a much greater increase in kinetic energy than a similarly small increase in weight. Therefore, a slight knocking off a bit of top speed takes a lot more energy out of the accident, and therefore it's safer to be closer to that accident. So,
and they are
it's
running
like that.
on temporary circuits where they have to erect fencing and take it down, and that limits the infrastructure they can put in. A couple of problems I had with the first Formula E thing. The first one I didn't have a problem with, but my oldest son and Violet both struggled with. They walked in the room when it was on, and the first thing they said was, "Oh, what's that noise?" And they found the sound of the Formula E cars really bugged them. Now, it didn't bug me because I'm 53 and I'm mostly deaf. But I think but I think young people who still have the full range of frequencies available are hearing that, and it's really hurting them.
That's weird, because my wife said the same thing.
Yeah, really?
She went, "Oh, what's that noise?" I think women can hear a slightly higher frequency than men, can't they?
I think that's true, but one of the objectives, I believe, of Formula E was to draw new fans into motorsport, not just to address the existing audience of motorsport. Now, what you were saying about what people close to you have said about it, who are the kinds of people who they might well be trying to draw in, suggests that actually there might be some fundamental problems with the format of the thing.
I don't buy this attracting new people into motorsport, because if you're not into motorsport, you're not going to start with Formula E and not watch Formula 1. Yeah, because what might draw someone who's not into motorsport into watching it is something fresh and new and really exciting, and unfortunately Formula E looked like, to the non-motorsport fan, I suspect, any other motorsport except less interesting, because the speeds were lower and palpably lower. And I know what you mean about the track being pokey, but actually one of the problems for me was that the straights looked very wide and rather empty, and it just seemed to accentuate how slow the cars were in a straight line.
They looked good when you took the onboard camera, the point of view and the rear facing. That looked exciting because you're low and down with it. You get the parallax view of the closer walls, giving you that sense of speed. But you're absolutely right. A foreshortened long shot from the train at the end of the longest straight, and it's like, well, the cars will be here any minute now.
Do you know what it looked like to me? It looked like the shots you see of F1 cars going down the pit lane on their limiters.
Yeah.
That sort of aching kind of, come on. But then the Formula 1 car, they cross the line and then they're off. With this, it was just like, oh God, now they've got a break for a chicane or something. It was the camera angles were unfortunate. The scale of the track on some of those straights was unfortunate compared to the corners, which did seem a little bit pokey and a bit sort of narrow and constrained. It just felt like it had teething problems that needed ironing out, and I don't want to write it off because it's
I'm not writing it off.
And another thing that was weird was the
basically excited I am by the whole idea.
The car switchover thing. Yeah, they have this sort of time limit.
You have to be in there for 50
minimum
seconds.
time. Yeah. And so I can't remember who it was. One of the drivers sort of got out of his one car into the other one like a scolded cat.
Yeah,
and then had to sit there. And it's like, well, he should be rewarded for his athleticism and his ability to get out of one car into another one, which is no mean feat.
Also, it lost a couple of things. Because it's a temporary race series, if you like, that set up a temporary circuit in towns, the garages that they use aren't garages at all.
They're tents.
They're gazebos, they're marquees. They've been to the wedding fair and bought a job lot of 50 of these things. And it looks a bit down market compared to the high-tech, beautifully branded interiors with vinyl floors that you get in Formula 1 now. So it looked less than pinnacle as a result of that. Also, because the driver... Hang on, not driver change, the car change thing. Well, the driver has to change cars because his batteries don't last the whole race.
Although, if the driver changes cars, surely the car also changes drivers.
Correct.
Sorry.
I like it.
There's some kind of
I'm with you.
Symmetry. What do you call that?
Universal balance.
Motorsport philosophy.
It happens in this tent/garage/gazebo/wedding marquee. Now, in Formula 1, when you have pit stops, you get all the cars lined up in a row, and you're able to make a direct comparison. Oh, they've got the wheels off here. Oh, he stopped. He's going to... And it adds to the excitement. Doing it in isolation, you would need to have to see 3 or 4 garages in the same frame to get that sense of who's winning, who's not. It actually took the energy away from the electrical pun intended from the whole event.
Although, as Richard said, with those changes, they've got a minimum time, so you wouldn't be racing on it anyway. But I take the point.
My mate Tim, who you both met, who is a great programme maker, always said to me, if a new television series comes on, don't judge it until you've seen 6 episodes. 6 weeks in or 6 episodes in, they should have got it right by then. Now, in the case of Formula E, I think that means the season's going to be over. There's 6 races in.
Although, the analogy, you've kind of got to have almost sort of 6 racing seasons. Each time around, you go, change these rules, tweak that.
It took Formula 1, 15 years to really bed in, and then, another 10 years to become the money spinner that it was, and occasionally is now. How long is it going to take Formula E? Also, they're saying that it's a 1-make formula this year. Next year, off you go, develop your cars. I can tell you now that's not going to happen. Next year, they'll have a slight upgrade to the cars, but everyone will run the same cars. They can't afford to throw them away. These are not teams with enough money who can go off and design and develop a frontier technology car in year 2. It's going to be pretty much like this for a few years, and that's okay. But they've got to get further away from motorsport. You're absolutely right. The driver change thing is going to be replaced by a driver going into not a bloody tent, but something that looks like a multi-storey electronic car park from a video game, where some robots run in and whip the engine.
Fight him.
And fight him, yes.
Yeah, the driver has to fight actual robots.
That would do it.
While the battery's being changed.
It needs to get closer to video games and further away from conventional motorsport, and then it will succeed.
I don't know. I mean, I think what I want to see is better funded teams developing a greater variety of cars, and there being more freedom for them to do what they want design-wise, and for the whole thing basically to be a higher energy, quicker event. But I guess it has to grow into that. It can't be that from the off.
Yes, and also hovering and lasers.
Correct. At least.
Driven by sharks with frickin' lasers on their head.
On the moon. Then you've got a motorsport series that isn't motorsport. Hello and welcome to the final race of the 2076 Formula E season, taking place in the poorly named Sea of Tranquility. As they line up here on the electrical grid, the top 3 positions look like this. In third place, Sebastian Vettel Jr. in the Ferrari Tesla, entirely engineered by the brilliant algorithm known as Newibot. In second place, Nico Rosberg 2.11, half man, half Apple tablet. He truly is an example of the future of humankind, and I myself bow to our new masters. But on pole, as usual, the entity known simply as Energon. A non-corporeal living Higgsfield intelligence piloting the G-Wiz 3000. The cars hovering in the 1/6 Earth gravity found here on the moon. The Startinator waves the digital flag.
3, 2, 1.
And they're off! Immediately, Rosberg is assimilating the Vettel clone and incorporating his technology into his own, presumably to achieve some form of technological perfection. But what's happening now? Energon is using some sort of capture beam to turn the matter of the other 2 cars into pure energy. And I mean pure energy, not the sort that you get from drinking 2 cans of iron brew in quick succession. And that's it! It's over! The leading Formula E car speeds off into the distance, and thank heavens we can't hear it, because in space, mercifully, no one can hear that horrible screaming whine.
Sniff Petrol with Gareth Jones on speed!
In all honesty, Gareth Jones on speed, when we're at our best, it really is no more than just a pub discussion. You sit round the table, 3 of you with your pint, and someone says, No, I had a Nissan Cherry in the 1980s, best car in the world. Someone says that. And then other people around the table argue. Yeah, an argument. So, given the premise, what is the best car in the world? How would you answer that question, Zog?
This is not an easy question. It's an impossible question to come up with a definitive answer.
Correct.
All you can do is, give your personal preference and some reason.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I think here is that if you say, what is the greatest car in the world, we are in a transitional period in car design. I think quite a fundamental one, because we are transitioning from fossil fuels to a future which, and I'm talking about, let's say 100, 150 years in the future.
Yeah.
And I think it's reasonable to talk about that, given that the history of automobiles is now more than 100 years. So, on that kind of timescale, we're not going to have the kind of numbers of cars driven by fossil fuel that we have now. Electric powertrains, one way or another, are going to be where your original source of fuel is for that. Solar power, whether it's some form of nuclear or whatever it is, I don't know. I'm open-minded on that. But the wheels are going to be driven by electric motors one way or another. We are in an odd transitional period. That's kind of a rambly way of saying that anything that is wonderful right now is going to look odder further down.
Do we want to
Is the cat trying to join in?
Finn,
what are you...
has got something to say on the future of cars. Finn, are you coming in the room? Are you just going to shout at the landing?
So I'm going to be slightly awkward. I'm going to give you more than one answer here, because I think looking back, I would choose, from the history of automobiles, I think I would want to have either probably a Bugatti Type 35.
I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be so predictable.
That's fine.
But so beautiful, extraordinary racing history, plus you could drive them on the road. It's not quite as practical as a modern vehicle, but I don't care, I'm having it. If not that, Mercedes 450 SEL 6.9. But seriously, the greatest car in the world right now, how about a Murray T27? I know you can't actually buy one. I know they're not actually in production, so maybe that's technically not an acceptable answer. But I'm going to maybe offer that up as being the greatest car in the world right now, even though I'd rather have a Porsche 918 Spider. Yeah. And you can actually buy that, unlike the Murray T27. But it's a really radical design, not just in terms of the vehicle itself, but in terms of its manufacturing process. I think it's a massively significant vehicle. I don't entirely love its looks, but I love the boldness of it.
Do you like the new Yamaha version of it better or less than the original Gordon Murray design 27? Yamaha have engineered, it's more than a concept, isn't it? This is a promise of the car. Happening. It's a bit more conventional. Do you like that better than you say not mad on the looks of the Murray?
The Murray one, Yeah, slightly. It's difficult to make something in that format look as something that's basically lower and longer, and you've got more room to do stuff with swoopy bits and lines and so on, rather than being so constrained by the space you have to fit it in and the things that you have to either put in it or on it.
So even the greatest car in the world isn't not as good enough for you?
Well, I say, we're in a transitional phase, and I'm being a bit bloody-minded because having picked the Murray T27, I would rather be driving around in a 918 Spider, but I'm still tempted to say that the T27 is a greater car.
Wow.
Well, yeah. Well, no. Well, yes. What's the criteria?
Yeah,
It's to move a chest of drawers.
Yeah.
You're screwed in either of them. Well, might get it poking out the Porsche's roof if you put it on.
You know what I'm going to do? If I'm going to move a chest of drawers, I'm going to tie it to the back of the 918 on quite a long rope. Just go as fast as I can. I don't care what happens to the chest of drawers.
In the first corner, it would swing spectacularly and clobber into a phone box. I'd like to see that. So I sincerely wish with all of my heart that one day
I have to move a chest of drawers
manage to get that 918 Spider, just so we can see your elaborate chest of drawers chicanery going on.
Okay, well, I bet you a £5 that if I do ever get the hands on 918, I will figure out a way to move a chest of drawers with it if I have to.
Richard, can I guess what I think you could say is the best car in the world? It was built in the West Midlands in about 1981.
No. I don't know. I think it's a daft question, really, because I think it's so broad. I drove what I could be considered the best car in the world last week. I drove the Ferrari Speciale, and in terms of technical achievement and what it can do way more than I can do. I think you have to be a racing driver to get close to the limits of that car. I mean, yes, I'm sure you could lose control spectacularly in it, no matter what your driving ability.
Crash.
But my God, the car will do everything it can to stop that. I realised the first time I drove it that the previous occupants of the car had put, Ferraris have that Manettino dial on the wheel, which you can change the settings of the car, had put it to the everything off setting. And on a slightly damp in places Scottish mountain road, I would have gone for a slightly more cowardly setting for my first time in the car, particularly, and probably my every time in the car. But I didn't spot this because I was too busy playing with some of the other displays and things like that, and it's telling you your tyres are warm and all this sort of slightly gimmicky stuff. But it's a mark of how good the car is and how good the chassis is and how much grip there is that I could feel it starting to move around a little bit when you were really on it, but I just thought, well, that's actually how advanced the traction control is, that it's allowing the car a little bit of slip before it steps in. It turns out actually it was probably just more good luck that I didn't die horribly. But it's actually a mark of how talented the car is.
It's such a great car, it made sure you didn't kill yourself.
And it's got this sort of give in the chassis, and by which I mean that the suspension soaks up imperfections and ripples and ruts and dips and all sorts of different road surfaces at significant speeds and G-forces, and it always feels like it's got an answer for whatever the road is throwing at it. And without sort of starting to sound like some kind of awful helmsman-y car journalist, it is just an incredible machine, an incredible technical achievement, and the power and the resultant speed and the grip and the way that it's also managed to involve you in the experience. You could say it's the best
Because you've driven McLarens, haven't you?
Yeah, I drove a McLaren 650S on the same road on the same day.
And it just doesn't do that.
It doesn't, no. I had a bigger problem with the McLaren 650S that I just couldn't fit properly in it. It had the normal seats. I drove the 12C, which had the sport bucket seats, sort of one-piece thing. But on the normal seats, I just can't get comfy.
Wow. Really?
They're either my legs are squashed up, and when the seat's far enough back for my legs to be the right sort of angle, the backrest is like a church pew. It's awful.
I mean, we have to say, we're looking at a full-size scale model of Richard Porter here.
Yeah.
And he's, not a freakishly sized individual.
No, I'm 6'3", so I mean, sort of, I'm not like freakishly tall. I'm just sort of reasonably tall. But come on, there are other people of that height and more, and they should be thinking of this. And they clearly can fit people in if you put the sports seats in. But
I'm surprised because when I met Ron Dennis, the thing that astonished me about him was he was a much taller man than I ever imagined. He's got really long legs, quite a short body but quite long legs, and he was quite a tall guy. I always thought of him as a little fella. He's not.
No, he's
and
quite tall.
Knowing how involved he is in the car, you'd expect him to be able to get in one of his cars and know every nuance of it. So that's your vote. You call it
it's not. No, it's not. No. So when you misunderstand me.
Hang on, though. You called it the Ferrari Speciale.
Speciale, yes. It's the 458, but sort of amped up.
Yeah.
They've actually stopped making the 458 Coupe because they're now just devoting production to this Speciale until the new 458 comes along, I think, next year. Anyway, this is by the by. You could call the Speciale the best car in the world because on so many levels it's actually beyond almost anything I've driven. It really is an incredible tour de force of an achievement.
So many of the
but
things
is it the best car in the world?
So
I don't know. I mean, it's very expensive. It's very, very hardcore. It's very uncompromising. And if I just want to go down to my local supermarket and buy things, I wouldn't take a Speciale. It would be a waste of the car and of precious resources, perhaps, as well. You could argue it's guzzling a lot of fuel just making noise. So, I don't know. What if you want to drive across a field? I mean, the Range Rover Sport, pains me to say it, the latest generation one is an absolutely fantastic car. And actually would make not a bad job of driving around a Scottish mountain road either, because it's of the ilk of your... I know you hate them, but the Porsche Cayenne, what it can do in the face of the laws of physics is incredible. And you can say, as a piece of engineering, that's remarkable. That could be a candidate for the best car in the world. And you could get a chest of drawers in it. No need for you to... scythe old ladies' legs from under them as it's towed on a rope. But do you know what, truth be told, what do most people want from a car? They want something reliable and affordable and that doesn't use much fuel and that gets them where they need to go in safety and warmth and comfort. And it's why that Bugatti that you're citing...
has enough style.
Yes, exactly. But actually some people, they just want functional things. Oh, you'd say a second-hand Toyota Corolla is the best car in the world because it does more things for more people around the world than almost anything else. Yeah, but equally, as car enthusiasts, we have almost no interest in it whatsoever. You can admire it as a piece of engineering and perhaps we don't admire it enough for the fact that it gives people... It's like a digital Casio watch for £7.
Okay, you're right. And someone at the back of the class has had their hand up for a couple of minutes.
Go on.
Then my nomination for the best car in the world, and I don't know how much time I've got for this now, meets all the criteria that you have.
I haven't finished yet. I haven't finished because the thing is, right now, really quickly. The thing is, you said that Bugatti, and you're talking about older cars, but the thing is, actually, an older car is not the best car in the world anymore because it's old, because it has compromises, because its reliability, its efficiency, all these things will be found wanting now. So really, the best car in the world is the car that's just about to be made,
which we haven't got there yet.
Yeah, we're always evolving. And whatever it is, next year, 10 years' time, that'll be better than what we've got now. The next car in the world doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
Sorry, the best car in the world doesn't exist yet.
Yeah. Okay.
The next car doesn't exist either.
Pastor Maldonado, in your view, what's the best car in the world? Koi? No, car, Pastor. Car. Crow? No, the best car in the world. Carp? Never mind.
Gareth Jones on speed.
I'm so satisfied listening to you two talking about your nomination for the best car in the world. I'm particularly satisfied because of what Richard said, because I think the car I would nominate for the best car in the world actually meets many of your criteria, Richard.
I'm just going to quickly interject. It's not a Gilbert Invader, is it?
It's not a Gilbert Invader, no. That would have been a great choice.
I'm at peace now.
That's the best Welsh car in the world.
Continue.
Yeah. Now, this car is involving to drive. It offers levels of comfort which previously were unavailable, and it could carry a chest of drawers across a field. The Ford Model T, best car in the world, for the single reason that Henry Ford, applying his production techniques, what he'd learned about how he could make things in this modern age, to the motor car, brought the price down and made it available not just to a nation but to the whole world, and also in doing so opened up the whole world of cars to the rest of us. America was built on the railways, it was built on the wagon trains before that, but when the roads came, and it was the Ford Model T that forced them to be built, all those highways and interstates were built because of the availability of a cheap car for everyone. Levels of comfort that car offered you didn't get from a horse and cart.
Well, okay, significant car, yes. Mm-hmm. Best... I don't know. I'm not persuaded.
The ultimate people's car. That's a political statement. I make a political choice. It was the best car in the world.
The cheapest car you could buy when it came out?
I think it probably was.
Or was it just the most profitable car you could buy for the people who made it? Because, I mean, that was what drove the
enabling them to build more,
system, wasn't it? He cribbed that off...
the Chicago meat industry, basically. The production lines that took whole cows in one end and turned out steaks and other meat products from the other end. And,
from steak down to dog food.
15 million people can't be wrong. I don't know how many of those were repeat purchases, so should we say 9 million? 15 million full Model Ts between 1908 and something like 1927.
Well, actually, massively significant, but when you don't have much choice and it's Model Ts that are pouring off the production lines, not anything else, that's what you're going to buy.
In fairness, contemporary footage leads me to believe that the Model T was capable of cornering speeds higher even than, for example, Ferrari Speciale.
Were there any Keystone cops in the
There
background?
were some cops, yes, there were. Yeah. Yes, and one of them fell off the running boards and then leapt up again and shook his fist in the air at the car as it departed at what seemed to be 1,000 miles an hour.
And tremendous maintenance ability, levels of technology. You could just fix it yourself by hitting it or strapping a belt round something. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's got to be the best car. Something that changes the world.
One of the things that I like about the Model T is the fact that it was designed, I believe, essentially to run on fuel that you would grow yourself. It was designed to run on what you would now call bioethanol.
A sort of incredibly low compression engine. So, it was also, what was the capacity of a Model T engine?
It was 1,500 or something like that.
Oh, I thought they were quite big. I thought in the olden days all those 4-cylinder engines, but they were like a 4-litre or something.
There were some
you could hear each bang.
Let me find out. I want to find out. I don't know. I'm going to look into that. Hang on.
4-cylinder engines back then, but
talk amongst yourselves about the Ford Model T. There's a lot of Ford Model Ts in Boardwalk Empire at the moment.
Yes.
Was it really as big as 1,500cc? Was it really that big?
I don't know. Well, Gareth's going to find out. But I don't know. It might not have been. I think a lot of engines back then, though, were sort of very large capacity, but relative to the cylinders.
But they weren't very efficient.
Yeah.
How's your conversion? 177 cubic inch, of course.
177 cubic inches.
Yeah, what's that?
Okay, 2.54 centimetres to the inch. 2.5 cubed is 5.25 times 2.5, which is about 10 point something, so 1,700?
6.25 cubic.
No,
That's not right.
You've gone from litres.
Yeah.
Hang on, so you're saying how many
cubic inches?
Was
177 cubic inches.
Well, so it's getting on for a 2-litre engine by my maths.
2.9.
Really? 2.9 litres.
Well,
okay.
I'm going to say I'm right because I'm only at my 50%. I'm bang on as far.
So, but the Model T, so it was a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
So that is a big old. That's I mean,
that's
only Porsche sort of started to tickle those kind of. Well, and also Toyota pickup trucks. The Hilux has, I think, like a
2.9 is almost exactly the capacity of the 4-cylinder that was in the 968. That was the biggest production
4-cylinder engine.
Yeah,
and I think for quite a while before that. So.
I think there was an Isuzu Trooper. You could have a 3.1 litre diesel. It was a 4-cylinder, and it's just plant pots for cylinder liners.
Actually, if you want to see big cylinders, slight diversion, but look for information about the really, really enormous diesel engines that they put in big cargo ships. And there are these massive engines that have a cylinder block the size of a block of flats. And these incredibly slow-moving, enormous cylinders.
Like lifts.
It's like every explosion within a cylinder must be like this apocalyptic. Kaboom!
And then the cylinder goes down, and then down, and to the bottom of its stroke, and it goes back up again. But then moving that slowly, think how little friction there is compared to something that's whacking up and down. And I guess that's one of the reasons why they're so efficient.
They have like a sort of rudimentary Honda VTEC system, but it's actually operated by a man who walks around and adjusts the camlo by hand with a wrench.
I'm not doing this to generate envy, but I know Zog in particular, you'll get this. I remember crawling around the inside of the crawler that they used to transport the Apollo Saturn V moon rocket and
that's a vehicle.
And the shuttle at John F. Kennedy Space Center. Going inside it, it's like going into a factory, and in that factory are a row. I think were there 4 or were there 6? There were 2 redundant, I think. Enormous diesel electric generators. It was just beyond a car. It was a house and a battleship being a car. There you go. There's a contender for the best car in the world, the crawler. I should have said that, really.
If it's got multiple tracks rather than 4 wheels.
Yeah.
It's got a rocket on top of it, not a car.
It's not a car.
I've just remembered what the best car in the world is, according to a mate of mine, an old school friend of mine, who used to, mainly just to annoy me, he used to say that the better a car was, the higher its model number. So the McLaren F1 was rubbish.
Right, okay.
But the Audi 5000 they sold in America,
that was
great.
very good. Yes, so that was the thing. The Rover 800 was quite good, but the Saab 900 was better.
Of course.
And of course, the best car in the world, according to him, when he was trying to irritate me, was the Saab 9000.
Yeah.
But now, of course, the whole Infinity range would put them to
Oh, we'll leave you there, I think.
And yet, ironically, they're some of the worst cars in the world.
You've been listening to Richard Porter.
Goodbye.
To Zog.
Goodbye.
To me, Gareth, and I'm going to play you out on a tune I've written and recorded in not so much a style of one particular band, but certainly a genre. Here's something which is best described as kicking. We can say that, can't we, at the end of the show?
We just did.
Yeah. The American point of view. I just don't get Formula One. See ya. I just don't get Formula One. Well, those European guys with their European wives, European sensibilities, transcontinental lives. But when they speak on TV, I don't get a thing they say. 'Cause they got funny foreign accents, they look miserable today. Well, I took my boy to Indy to watch them in the Grand Prix. They drove round the wrong way like a bunch of dicks. They're overpaid and now they're over here. I just don't think they were sincere, 'cause they didn't even kiss a yard of bricks. Well, they don't chew tobacco or cuss or spit or bite. They don't even look like us, but women termite. They're so un-American, they probably don't even own a gun. Sport, but I just don't get Formula One. Yeah, I love all sorts of auto sport, I just don't get Formula One. Perhaps when Mike Schumacher marries his sister, then I'll understand Formula One. Back to marry a sister, so I'll understand Formula One. Let's go to Long Beach, boys.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site, follow us on Twitter, or to find out about sponsorship opportunities, go to garethjones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!